Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Underhive Wars. This is our series of Necromunda battle reports. This is battle report number 13. It is a standout scenario that is fought between my friends Brother Grimm with the Pelago-Slam Kings of House Goliath versus my other friend Lady Domina of the Killjoys of House Escher. So this one, ladies and gentlemen, it's a husband versus wife. My two friends are married, so their two gangs will be fighting it out, so it's kind of interesting. Battle of the sexes, which is also kind of interesting as well. An all-male gang versus an all-female gang. Also, this is the very first battle report of our turn number 5 for our Peachtree's Turf War campaign as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to show play on some background music real quick. We'll show you photos of both gangs as well as the rosters for both gangs as well. If you want to see exactly what my friends Brother Grimm and Lady Domina are bringing for this battle report, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the standoff scenario real quick on this one. As you can see, my friends are fighting on a 4x4 table. The slime river there on the right hand side represents the right hand border, and the rest of the table is a 4x4 square. So like I said before, this is a standoff scenario. In the end, the winner of the scenario earns D3 times 10 credits. At the same time, whoever wins on a D6 roll of +1, D6 +1 on a roll of 4 or higher, the winning gang member also receives a new piece of territory as well. Anybody who survives the scenario also gains 1 experience point. Same thing with the winning gang leader of this scenario, they also earn themselves 1 experience point as well. For reputation, the winning gang earns 2 points reputation. Also, if this is the very first time that each gang is fighting against each other, which it is, both gangs earn +1 reputation for fighting against each other for the very first time. However, if any gang also decides to bottle out, they lose that point of reputation as well. Also, you also earn 1 point of reputation for each 100 points of difference in gang ratings. And the gang rating difference between the Pelago-Slam Kings as well as the Killjoys is around 200 points in favor of the Killjoys. So because of that, my buddy Brother Grimm will be getting 2 points of reputation regardless of how this battle report turns out. So with the scenario rules over with, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. Alright, here is an overhead shot of the entire battlefield for the 4x4 table. My friend Brother Grimm's Pelago-Slam Kings are deployed on the near side of the table, while Lady Domina's Killjoys are located on the far side of the table. And as you can see, they kind of broke up their armies into 3 individual fire teams. Looks like what they're going to do is just line up across each other and just kind of scrap it out to see exactly who's left standing, which is actually kind of interesting because both the Escher as well as the Goliath have a notorious hatred for each other. And it's kind of funny because my friends are playing this game and their husband and wife, so it's kind of interesting to see how it goes. So that being said, let's go and talk about the individual deployment areas for each of the gangs. Alright, so starting with the Goliaths. On the left-hand side, that's my buddy Brother Grimm's leader, that's Blitzkrieg Bob. In the back, up front, we have Fleshstick, he's armed with a Renderizer. We also got the Headhunter on the left-hand side, as well as Crank with his Stub Comba Plasma on the right-hand side. In the center of the board is another 3-man kill team that's led by Grizz, his gang champion, who's armed with a rivet gun. On the left-hand side, I believe that is Gage is his name. That's the guy's armed with a stub cannon. And up at the front is a Juve named Trip the Shrimp. So that makes up his 3-man fire team here in the center of the table. And finally, on the right-hand side is his last little strike team. Up in the front, he has Whack-A-Mole, that's his Juvie, who's armed with a auto pistol as well as a hammer. On the left-hand side, that is Porter, that's another ganger who's armed with a stub cannon. And leading this is his other champion, Rager, who's armed with a combat shotgun as well as a sword. And that makes up his right-hand flank. Meanwhile, across the table for Lady Domina's Killjoys, starting on the left-hand flank inside the building, you really can't see them, but there are 3 gang members located up there. There is Furia, the gang leader of the Killjoys, as well as Nocturna, One-Shot Blonde, as well as Mad Max, I believe. Those are 3 gangers armed with blast guns. And on the very bottom there, that is Marlo the Harlow. That is a Juvie's armed with a last pistol, so that makes up Lady Domina's left-hand flank. Right in the center is another 3-man squad led by Yoko the Pyro. That's a champion armed with a Nightshade Kimthor. Up in the front we have, what's her name? Holy Havoc. That's the gangers armed with the last gun. On the right-hand side is Trixie. She's also armed with the last gun, as well as a chain sword, as well as a plasma pistol. So pretty, combat-oriented center kill team. And following the right hand side is the remainder of the gang that's led by Raven, the gang champion's armed with a bolt gun as well as a chainsword. Over there you have Lucky Lucy, she's armed with a grenade launcher, as well as Mad Donna, who is a gang who's armed with a heavy stubber. Up in the front, of course, is the last Judy, that's Mimi the Punk, she's armed with the last pistol as well. And that pretty much makes up the right hand deployment for my friend Lady Domina. Alright, so it starts off with turn number 1. The Escher do manage to take the initiative on this one. So in the action phase, the very first thing that my friend Lady Domina does is activate her gang champion, that's Yoko the Pyro. Because she is a champion, she can also activate 2 other fighters as well. The first thing that she does is she spends a couple of double movement actions for both Yoko the Pyro as well as Mimi the Punk. They both move up to the center there next to that little, sorry, not Mimi the Punk, that's Holy Havoc, I'm sorry. So Holy Havoc as well as Yoko the Pyro, they do double movements heading towards the foxhole, which is right in the middle of the table there, to take cover there, as well as land some any shooting that takes place in case the Goliath's charged at the middle. At the same time, the very top there, Trixie also takes up a covering overwatch position with her last gun as well as her plasma pistol. So that makes up the Escher's action for this portion of the action phase. Meanwhile, for Brother Grimm, he then activates Rager, who's a gang champion. He therefore activates the other 2 members of his gang, which is Porter as well as Whack-A-Mole. First thing he does, he sends up a double movement for Whack-A-Mole to the base of that walkway, so that way if anybody decides to shoot these Goliaths, they have to shoot at the Juvie first. He also moves up 4 inches, both Rager as well as Porter, their normal movement allowance, so that way Porter gets at a closer range to open up with his stub cannon. In fact, he does take aim with his stub cannon for his second action, opens up onto Holy Havoc as well. Unfortunately for Lady Domina, not only does Porter manage to hit Holy Havoc with the stub cannon, but also manages to wound as well as put that character out of action as well. So because of that, Holy Havoc will need to roll up on the serious injury table after the end of the scenario, and first blood definitely goes to the Goliaths at this point. So things are looking kind of rough. Not to be outdone by the Goliaths, my friend Lady Domina, she then activates her gang champion Raven, and because of that, that means she activates 2 other gangers as well. She activates Lucky Lucy with her grenade launcher as well as Mad Donna with her heavy stubber. She keeps Mad Donna behind because that character is carrying an unwieldy heavy weapon, so because of that she cannot move and shoot in the same turn, so she keeps her there because that way she gets that nice 40-inch long range firepower from the heavy stubber. She does move up both Raven as well as Lucky Lucy their normal 5-inch movement allowance, so that way they give them closer range to open up with their bolt guns as well as their grenade launcher as well. In fact, the very first thing that she does, she opens up with Lucky Lucy with a grenade launcher. Both Raven as well as Lucky Lucy do manage to get off their shots. In fact, Lucky Lucy opened up, sorry, not Lucky Lucy, Raven opened up with her bolt gun onto Whack-A-Mole. Not only did she manage to hit that guy, but also managed to put that guy out of action as well, wounding him. So because of that, Whack-A-Mole will need to roll up on the serious injury table to see what happens to him. Lucky Lucy does open up with a frag grenade onto both Rager as well as onto Porter. So because of that, both those guys get hit with a frag grenade. And not only did she manage to hit both of them, but she also caused a wound for both of them as well. Unfortunately for Brother Grimm, Porter goes down out of action as well. So right off the bat, 2 members of his gang are out of action, and that's going to really take a hold right there in the end phase as well. Also managed to put on wound on Rager as well, but Rager is a champion, so because he does carry 2 wounds, so he's looked like he's not going anywhere either. So things are not looking very good for the Goliaths at this point. Mad Donna does open up with her heavy stubber, but unfortunately she wasn't able to land any of her blows. So because of that, things are looking kind of bad for Brother Grimm at this point. Looking to redeem himself, Brother Grimm then activates Grizz, who, because he's a champion, he also activates his 2 other members, which is Gage as well as Trip the Shrimp. He has Trip the Shrimp do a double movement through the causeway, so that way acting himself as a human bullet magnet, so that way if anyone wants to take a shot at this kill team, this little fire team, they'll have to go after him first. He then moves up both Gage as well as Grizz to the other side of those columns, taking cover, so that way they can start putting on some shooting. Unfortunately for them, they're out of range of shooting anybody because Goliath guns are very powerful but very short range, so all they can really do is just kind of move up and then take cover at that point. Lady Domina then activates her lone Juvie, that is Marlo the Hollow, I believe who that is. She moves up her double inches as well, so that way her double movement, so that way she can also act as a bullet shield for any incoming fire. And then finally, Brother Grimm activates Blitzkrieg Bob as well as his other gang members, that is Crank, Fleshstick, as well as the Headhunter. Has the entire team move up a double movement, so that way they can start making their way towards the center of the battlefield as well. And the very last portion, before we get to the end phase, Lady Domina then activates the rest of her gang. She activates, Furia, who is her leader, who then activates Nocturna, One Shot Blonde, as well as Mad Max. And those characters also spin up double movements, making their way towards the center of the battlefield as well. For the end phase, both gangs do take losses, so they roll all for bottle tests, but they all both automatically pass their bottle tests, so no need to go on from that point. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2. Alright, so that takes the top of turn number 2 with the Goliath's action phase, so they have priority this time. First thing that my buddy Brother Grimm decides to do is activate his champion Grizz, and because he's a champion, he activates both Trip the Shrimp as well as Gage. But they basically decided to do is start moving up forward. Both Grizz as well as Gage move up their normal 4 inches, so that way they get within range of the Killjoys, so that way they can start laying some long-range firepower, both with Grizz's stub gun, because his Crumper rivet gun is out of range, so he's going to use his pistol. At the same time, Gage is going to open up with his stub cannon. At the same time, he also spends a double movement, double action for Trip the Shrimp, so that way he can charge directly into Marlowe the Hollow. And unfortunately for Brother Grimm, the 2 shots from both Grizz as well as Gage actually doesn't really do much of anything. Grizz actually misses a shot with the stub gun. However, the stub cannon from Porter does manage to put a flesh wound onto Mimi the Punk, but all it does is actually just put a flesh wound on her and also push her back an inch as well, which is really not much of anything. Meanwhile, across the battlefield where Trip the Shrimp and Marlowe the Harlow are fighting, in fact, here's a close-up shot of Trip the Shrimp as well as Marlowe the Harlow engaged in close combat. So because these two are now charged into each other, they do fight out in the combat phase. But unfortunately for Brother Grimm, he was unable to land a single blow with Trip the Shrimp. However, Marlowe the Harlow had no problem actually putting 2 wounds onto this guy as well, using both her last pistol as well as her dagger. So because of that, she managed to put Trip the Shrimp out of action. So because of that, Trip the Shrimp will need to work a roll on the serious injury table after the scenario is over. And then, of course, Marlowe the Harlow, she also moves up 3 inches to reconciliate as well. Meanwhile, Lady Dama then activates Raven, who then activates both Mimi the Punk as well as Lucky Lucy. They decided to stand their ground and start shooting some open-range fire at some of the Goliaths that are coming their way. Unfortunately for Lady Dama, though, most of her shots did not really succeed. The only shot that did succeed was when Raven, she opened up with her bolt gun. Not only did she wound Grizz, but also managed to cause a serious injury as well. So because he's laying face down, bleeding out at this point, because that's all I can do. He's still recovering from his wounds. Brother Grimm then activates Rager, who moves him up his normal 4 inches. That way he's in the 12 inches with his combat shock, and he opens up with a salvo round against the Killjoys that are located across from him. And because Mimi the Punk is the closest target to him, he has to target that juvie and opens fire. Not only does he hit the juvie, but also manages to wound her twice. He does cause a flesh wound, so now she's -2 to her toughness. At the same time, he also caused her serious injury as well, and it pushed her back an inch because of the knockback ability from that gun. So that's basically Lady Domina's first major casualty that took place during this action phase. Lady Dama then activates Trixie using her last gun. She decides to target across the battlefield towards Gage and opens up with her last gun shot against him. Unfortunately for Lady Domina, Trixie does manage to hit Gage with the last gun, but unfortunately was unable to wound him. So because of that, Gage is now laying on the ground because he is pinned and is not really much of anything. All he has to do is to have a simple action to get back on his feet again to cause some more havoc later on. Meanwhile, Brother Grimm then activates Blitzkrieg Bob as well as the members of the fire team that are with him. As you can see in this photo, he spends a double action moving up Crank towards the other side of that walkway, so that way if he had to draw any incoming fire to keep Blitzkrieg Bob as well as the Headhunter safe. He does move up Blitzkrieg Bob and Headhunter only 4 inches, so that way they can shoot later on this turn. And he also spends a double action for, Flesh Stick to charge directly into Marlowe the Harlow, so because of those two characters will be engaged in close combat as well. However, the first thing they decide to do is to start focusing with the shooting for both the Headhunter as well as Blitzkrieg Bob. Blitzkrieg Bob decides to use a frag grenade in order to hit both Raven as well as Mimi the Punk. Unfortunately for him, though, fortunately for him, he did make the shot. So because that, the explosive does go off. However, unfortunately, he wasn't able to cause any wounds. He does push back both the Killjoy members an inch because of knockback abilities, but that's really about it as well. The Headhunter shot also went kind of wide as well, so because of that, he wasn't able to hit anybody or cause any wounds for that matter either. However, close combat between Flesh Stick as well as Marlowe the Harlow was pretty brutal. The Flesh Stick had no problem whatsoever just slicing to pieces with the renderizer, so because of that, Marlowe the Harlow will need to take a out of action check. She'll need to take a roll in the serious injury table to see what happens to her. And then he also moves up 3 inches with Flesh Stick getting ready to face down Furia, as well as a little fire team of Killjoys coming up the left-hand flank. Lady Domino also activates Mad Donna using her heavy stubber. She takes her heavy stubber, takes aim across the battlefield towards Rager, and opens shots with her heavy stubber. And not only does she manage to hit Rager, also manages to cause him injury as well, giving him a serious injury. So because he's laying on the ground face down, bleeding out from his injuries at this point. And because there's no more Goliath at this point, the rest of the action phase is dedicated to the Killjoys. Lady Domina then activates Yoko the Pyro, who then takes her Night Kim thrower and actually takes aim with it and opens up onto Flesh Stick as he's running across the battlefield. Not only does she manage to hit him, but she also manages to wound him as well. And unfortunately for Fleshstick, Brother Grimm did fail his characteristic check, so because that he does go out of action, and because that Fleshstick will need to roll up on the Series table to see what happens to him as well. Lady Dama then activates Furia, who then in turn activates the other 3 members of her gang, which is Nocturna, One Shot Blonde, as well as Mad Max. All 4 gang members move up 4 inches, move up their normal amount of inches, 5 inches, to the corner of the Alexander's department store. They do take aim with their last guns and start shooting into the Pelago-Slam Kings. They do manage to wound and as well as put a serious injury onto Crank, so because that he's laying face down and he is bleeding out at this point. At the same time, Fury had line of sight onto Gage, managed to open up with her bolt gun. Not only she managed to hit him, but also managed to wound him as well, giving him a serious injury. So because of that, he is now laying on the ground, bleeding out as well. So things are definitely looking very bad for the Pelago-Slam Kings. So because of that, we go directly to the end phase. And as you can guess, my buddy Brother Grimm rolled up for his bottle test. Unfortunately for him, he did fail the bottle test for the Pelago-Slam Kings, and the Pelago-Slam Kings start bottling out. And at this point that my buddy Brother Grimm decides to call the game because he doesn't want to really spend the rest of the turn watching his guys flee and run. He's got so many guys who are down right now who could possibly go out of action and end up getting more seriously injured than he needs to. So because of that, that brings us to the end of the game with an Escher victory for Lady Dominant. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the post game and talk about exactly what happened to the gangs because this battle report is now officially over. Alright, so now it's time for the post-game. This is the part of the battle report we talk about exactly what happens to the gangs in terms of injuries, advancements, reputation, turf, what kind of actions they take at the merchants, as well as their new record, as well as their new gang ratings. So starting off with the Goliaths of Pelago-Slam Kings of House Goliath. For injuries, 3 members of this gang went out of action. That was Fleshstick, Trip the Shrimp, as well as Whack-A-Mole. Fleshstick suffered an injury. He suffered another hobbling injury again, which brings it to 2, which means that he's also reduces his movement allowance down to by another point as well, which means that Fleshstick now has a movement allowance of 2. The poor guy's just basically just kind of like limping around trying to get to you with his renderizer. At the same time, Trip the Shrimp as well as Whack-A-Mole do roll out for out cold, so because of that they both will make full recoveries. There's no problem for those guys as well. In terms of advancements, there wasn't enough experience points gained by the Pelago-Slam Kings for them to advance. However, for the reputation, they do earn 1 point of reputation for fighting for the Killjoys for the very first time. However, they do lose that point of reputation for bottling out. However, because there was a 200-point difference in the gang ratings between the Pelago-Slam Kings and against the Escher in favor for the Escherites, they do receive 2 points of reputation for that now. So because of that, the gangs, the Pelago-Slam Kings' total reputation points is now at 3. From their turf, they do manage to earn 10 creds from their turf. At the same time, Blitzkrieg Bob, Grizz, and Rager worked the turf, getting an additional 110 creds, giving them a total of 120 creds to use for the merchant. They decided the merchant to hire a new ganger named Craze. They armed that guy with a combat shotgun for a total of 120 creds. In the end, their new record now has had 0 wins as well as 5 losses, so the Pelago-Slam Kings are now the official whipping boys of the Peachtree Wars Turf War, and their new gang rating now is at 1,450 points. For the Killjoys, they suffered 2 injuries on this one. Holy Havoc as well as Marla the Hollow. Holy Havoc suffered a grievous injury, so because that she will be out for a turn, she will not be able to participate. And Marla the Harlow actually rolled out all cold, so because that she's back on her feet for the next battle report. For advancements, actually 3 members of the gang did level up. Nocturna leveled up to level 2, earning herself +1 to her toughness, so now she's toughness 4. Trixie also learned the specialist skill, so she can now start using special weapons, and Mad Donna earned +1 to her cool as well. For the reputation, they do earn 3 points of reputation for winning, bringing up the gang's total reputation pool point to 5 points. For the turf, they did manage to get an additional piece of turf, so they do get 1 for that. And because of that, they also earned 30 creds from winning as well, so they use that to get to their total pool. They end up working their turf for 20 creds, also managed having Furia, Yoko the Pyro, as well as Raven working their turf as well, during 100 creds, giving them a grand total of 135 creds, especially when you take the 5 creds they had in their stash from the previous round. At the merchant, they purchased a brand new plasma gun for Trixie, so now Trixie's using a plasma gun now instead of a plasma pistol. They also purchased frag grenades from Mad Max, and they put the remaining 5 creds into the stash. Their new record now is at 3 wins as well as 2 losses, and their new gang rating is at 1,750 points. That's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Google+, as well as blogger.com for all the latest and greatest about the hobby info about our channel. So that's good to do for this one, you guys. We guys will catch you guys the next one with Spoils of War this Friday. You guys stay classy. Peace out.